My name is Ethan, and if you had asked me a year ago whether I thought my family loved me, I would have said yes, without hesitation. We weren't perfect, but I thought we were close enough. We had our traditions, our inside jokes, and those long, chaotic road trips that we somehow survived year after year. I thought all of that meant something. I thought I meant something. Turns out, I was wrong. Last summer, everything changed. It was supposed to be one of those classic family vacations, the kind you look back on and laugh about years later. My parents had rented this big beach house down in Florida, and we were going to drive down from our home in Virginia, making stops along the way like we always did. In the van would be me, my older brother Josh, my sister Kayla, my parents, and Uncle Marty, Mom's brother who never really grew up and always had a cooler full of beer with him. Classic road trip chaos. I was hesitant about spending that much time trapped in a van with Josh and Kayla, who had both been acting weird lately, but I figured I'd survive. The first 2 days were uneventful, if a little tense. Josh kept making these weird comments, like calling me deadweight Ethan when we loaded the bags, or joking about how the trip would be more fun with one less person. I thought it was just him being his usual jerk self. Kayla would just giggle and say, "You'll see." Every time I asked what was so funny. I should have known something was up, but I brushed it off. I didn't want to be that guy who ruins the mood by being paranoid. On day 3, somewhere in the middle of Georgia, we stopped at a small gas station. I went inside to grab a drink and use the restroom. It wasn't a long stop, maybe 10 minutes. But when I came back out, the van was gone. I stood there at first thinking I must have missed something. Maybe they parked somewhere else. Maybe they were just messing around. But the parking lot was empty. No van. No family. No note. Nothing. I pulled out my phone and tried calling them, but there was no signal. Eventually, a single text came through from Josh. "Oops. Guess you missed the van. Think you can catch up?" Then another one, this time from Kayla. "Let's see if he can survive on his own. Bet he won't make it to Florida, lol." I couldn't believe what I was reading. It didn't even feel real. I waited there for an hour, then 2. I asked the gas station attendant if he saw where they went. He just shrugged and said, "They peeled out of here like they were late for a flight." I started walking toward town, trying to stay calm, hoping this was all just a prank that had gone too far. But hours passed. My phone finally died. The sun set, and I was still alone. That night, I slept behind a dumpster behind a closed car wash. I didn't even sleep, really. I just sat there, hungry, sweating, being eaten alive by mosquitoes. I couldn't stop thinking, why? What did I do to deserve this? The next morning, I made my way to the nearest library, hoping to find a computer and some kind of help. I logged into an old email account and reset the password to Josh's Instagram. He once told me his childhood password when we were kids, and he was dumb enough to still use it. Inside, I found a group chat. Josh, Kayla, my parents, and Uncle Marty. They were laughing. They had planned it. Mom said, "Ethan needs to toughen up. This'll be good for him." Dad sent a thumbs up emoji and wrote, "We'll pick him up at the beach if he makes it." Josh posted a picture of me standing in the gas station parking lot, taken from the van's rear window. The caption, "Legend says he's still there." Kayla replied, $20 says he cries before he makes it to Savannah. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking. My own family had abandoned me, 500 miles from home, as a joke. But I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of breaking down. If they wanted to see what I could survive, then fine. I'd survive. And I'd make sure they regretted ever thinking this was funny. I found a message board for travelers and posted asking for a ride to Florida. A few creeps messaged me, but then this guy named Carl replied. Retired Army vet, driving down to visit his grandkids. I told him everything. He didn't laugh. He just nodded and said, "Get in." Carl was a godsend. He bought me a meal, let me sleep in the passenger seat while he drove, even gave me a few bucks to keep in my pocket. It took us 2 days, but we made it. I got dropped off about 5 blocks from the beach house. I looked like hell, sunburnt, sweaty, wearing the same clothes I had on when they left me. I walked past the house slowly. They were outside, having a barbecue. I saw Kayla laughing with some guy I didn't recognize, Josh filming a TikTok, my dad flipping burgers like nothing ever happened. They had moved on. They didn't even look worried. They weren't even thinking about me. I didn't go up to the house. Not yet. I checked into a cheap motel with the cash Carl gave me and used the Wi-Fi to get back into my burner Instagram. I made a new account at the Real Family Trip, and I started uploading everything, screenshots of their messages, pictures from the group chat, even a dramatic voiceover I recorded from the motel bathroom narrating the story. I tagged everyone. Josh, Kayla, My parents. Even Uncle Marty. Then I paid $50 to promote the post locally. Targeted it to the town we were in. By the next morning, it had 10,000 views. Then 20,000. Then 100,000. The comments were vicious. Strangers were outraged. People from their jobs, their colleges, their lives. They all started asking questions. Josh's brand sponsorship dropped him. Kayla's college sorority issued a statement. My dad's company was tagged in every post, and they still didn't know I was in town. That night, I knocked on the door. Kayla opened it. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Ethan, I smiled. Hey, miss me? My parents came rushing out. My dad tried to act like everything was fine. Mom burst into tears. Josh just stared at me, jaw clenched. I pulled out my phone and played the video of them driving off, laughing. Still think it's funny? They begged me to delete the Instagram. Said it was a misunderstanding. Said they loved me. I told them I'd consider it if they filmed a public apology. Together. No excuses. No fake tears. Just the truth. They said no. So I left and let the videos keep spreading. Josh's brand cut all ties. Kayla's boyfriend broke up with her. My dad got suspended. Mom's church group kicked her out. 2 days later, they posted the apology. It hit over 1 million views. I left Florida that night. Took a bus home. My own place. No more group chats. No more fake love. They haven't contacted me since, but I still get messages. From strangers. From people who said they saw the story, and it gave them the courage to cut out their own toxic families. So yeah, they thought it'd be funny to kick me out 500 miles from home. But I made it. I exposed them. And I ruined their perfect little holiday. Turns out, I'm a lot harder to get rid of than they thought. But the story doesn't end there. A few weeks after everything blew up, I started getting emails from media outlets. Some wanted interviews. Others offered to license the footage for documentaries about toxic families and social media revenge. I declined most of them. I wasn't ready. Not yet. But one local reporter came across more genuine than the rest. Her name was Maria. She wasn't just looking for a scoop. She had her own story. Estranged from her father after years of emotional manipulation. We bonded over that shared pain, and soon, what started as a single coffee interview turned into multiple lunches. Then dinners. Then nights just talking. Maria helped me turn the chaos into something bigger. We started a podcast together, Bloodline Boundaries, where we shared stories of people like me who had been betrayed by the very people who were supposed to love them most. The podcast took off, and suddenly, I wasn't just the kid who got abandoned at a gas station anymore. I was someone people looked to for courage. But just when things were finally stabilizing, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Josh. I messed up, man, he said. His voice cracked. He sounded hollow. They all turned on me. Mom and Dad blamed me for everything. Said I pushed the prank too far. Kayla hasn't spoken to me since the apology went viral. I stayed silent. Part of me felt cold satisfaction. Another part, the part that still remembered how we used to play video games together as kids, felt something else. Sadness, maybe. I'm sorry, he finally said. I was jealous. Always felt like they treated you better than me. And when I suggested the prank, they jumped on it like it was normal. He asked to meet up. Said he wanted to apologize in person. I didn't say yes. But I didn't say no, either. A week later, I showed up to the diner we agreed on. He was already there. Alone. No cameras. No phone out. Just my brother. Older. Gaunter. More broken than I'd ever seen him. We talked. For hours. He cried. I didn't. I just listened. In the end, I told him the same thing I told myself every day since that gas station. You don't get to come back into my life just because you're sorry. But I hope you become someone worth trusting someday. That was it. Maria and I kept building the podcast. We launched a YouTube channel. I started working with nonprofit orgs helping runaway teens. I took something meant to break me and used it to build something stronger. Funny how karma works. They thought it'd be funny to leave me behind. But I became the one person they couldn't ignore. And if you're listening to this, if your family ever made you feel small, unwanted, or disposable, just know this. You're not alone, and you're not broken. Sometimes, being left behind is exactly what you need to finally move forward. A year later, I got a letter from my mom. No return address. Just my name, written in that familiar cursive. Inside, just a note. We made a mistake. We thought it was a joke. We were wrong. I hope one day you can forgive us. I never replied. A few months after that, Kayla messaged me. Said she'd lost everything. Said she was sorry. Said therapy made her realize how cruel she'd been. I didn't reply. Instead, I posted one last video. I wanted revenge. I got it. But I realized something. Revenge ends. Healing doesn't. I'm not going back. I'm moving forward. You should too. And that was the end of At the Real Family Trip. I shut it down. Now I tell stories. Stories like mine. Stories like yours. Because you're not alone. And if no one's told you this before, let me be the first. You deserve better. And you still do. Not long after we launched our third podcast season, I got another message. This one wasn't from a stranger or Josh, or even an angry family member trying to claw back dignity. It was from Uncle Marty. Subject line, I owe you more than an apology. I almost deleted it without reading. But something made me pause. Maybe curiosity. Maybe spite. Inside was a long, rambling letter. He admitted everything. That it was his idea to drive off without me. That he'd joked about it the night before in the motel, saying, let's see if the runt can grow some balls. Everyone laughed. My parents laughed. But then he said something that stopped me cold. I was drunk when I said it, Ethan. But they weren't drunk when they agreed. He wrote about how he'd seen the fallout. That after the video went viral, he lost his part-time job at the marina. That he tried calling my parents, but they blamed me for everything. Said I manipulated public opinion. That I weaponized sympathy. Marty didn't ask for forgiveness. He didn't even ask me to write back. He just wanted to say that what they did to me had haunted him. That he started going to AA. That he hadn't had a drink in 72 days. It was the first real accountability I'd heard from anyone in that van. I didn't reply. Not yet. But I saved the email. Because even if I never spoke to him again, I wanted to remember that not all ghosts disappear. Some write back. As our podcast gained more listeners, people started sending their own stories. Some were heartbreaking, others infuriating. But they all shared a common thread, that primal betrayal of being cast out by your own blood. It gave us direction and purpose. Maria suggested we do a live tour, intimate venues, audience Q&As, a chance for people to connect in real time. I was nervous. I'm not a public speaker. I'm not even that social. But when I stood on that first stage in Chicago and looked out into a packed house of people nodding, crying, and cheering, I realized I wasn't just telling my story anymore. I was telling ours. That night, after the event, a teenage girl came up to me with her mom. She said she'd run away from home after years of emotional abuse, but she kept a clip from my podcast saved on her phone. The clip where I said, you don't need permission to walk away from people who hurt you, even if they're family. She said it helped her leave, helped her survive. That hit harder than any view count or sponsorship deal ever could. Eventually, offers came in for a book deal, then a documentary series. Maria and I co-wrote a memoir together, abandoned at mile marker 219, and it hit bestseller lists within a month. Suddenly, we weren't just podcasters or revenge icons. We were advocates, but with visibility came new problems. Trolls who claimed I made the whole thing up. Former co-workers of my parents who defended them. Even a distant cousin who tried to sue me for defamation because I mentioned a family reunion in an episode. And then, out of nowhere, I got another call. Mom. I didn't answer, but I listened to the voicemail. Her voice was tired, weathered. Ethan, I know I don't deserve to ask you for anything, but please, if you have it in your heart, call me back. I'm not asking you to forget. Just, I want to talk. Really talk. I didn't call her back. Not yet. But I didn't delete the message either, because I've learned something over the last year. Forgiveness isn't a switch. It's not a gift you hand out like candy. It's a boundary you get to choose. On your timeline. For your healing. Not theirs. Some days, I think about what it would be like to sit down with all of them again. Josh, Kayla, Mom, Dad, even Uncle Marty, and just unload. Let them explain. Let them squirm. Let them beg. Other days, I think about how peaceful my life is without their voices in it. And then I look around. At Maria, at our team, at the inbox filled with strangers who turned their pain into power, and I realize I chose better. I built something out of the rubble they left me in. And no matter how many voicemails or emails or half-hearted apologies come in, that will always be mine. So if you're listening to this and you feel alone, stranded, or discarded, just remember, sometimes the greatest revenge isn't burning everything down. It's building something so unshakable that they can't touch it, and walking away, stronger, louder, and finally free. It happened a few months after the book launch. I was speaking at a community center in Richmond, Virginia, not far from where I grew up. We'd chosen the location deliberately, knowing it might stir something. Part of me hoped they'd show up. Part of me dreaded it. The venue was packed. Standing room only. I gave my usual talk about resilience, boundaries, rebuilding after betrayal. At the end, we opened it up for a Q&A. A few hands shot up. One girl asked how to handle guilt after going no contact. Another man broke down talking about his mother's narcissism. Then I saw her. In the back, half shrouded by a support pillar, stood my mom. Hair grayer, shoulders slouched. Not the composed woman I remembered. Just small. She didn't raise her hand. She just stood there, eyes fixed on me, not blinking, not moving. I froze for a moment, then gently passed the mic back to Maria. She nodded. I walked off stage, heart pounding. The air felt electric, charged. When I reached the back, she took a step forward. "Ethan," she whispered. I didn't know if I should come. I didn't hug her. I didn't smile. "You came anyway," I said. She nodded, lips trembling. "Your father's in the car. He couldn't come inside." I didn't respond. I didn't care about him hiding out like a coward. "I read the book," she said. Every word. "I know I don't get to say this, but I am so sorry." Tears streamed down her face. People around us tried not to stare. I stood there, arms crossed. Years of anger surged beneath my skin. I could feel that hot Georgia air again. Smell the gas station concrete. Taste the dust from that long walk into town. "You planned it," I said flatly. "You laughed. You watched it happen." She sobbed harder. I thought it would bring us closer somehow. Like, it'd be a story we'd joke about. I didn't realize how broken we already were. "That's the problem," I said. "You didn't realize. You never realized. Not when I sat quietly in the back seat. Not when I stopped talking at dinner. Not even when I disappeared." She didn't deny it. Just crumbled. Right there in the back of the hall, gripping her purse like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "I can't take it back," she whispered. "But I want to understand. Even if it's too late." I took a deep breath. "You don't get to come back into my life just because you're sorry," I said, echoing the words I once told Josh. "But if you're serious about understanding, then prove it." Her eyes lifted. "How?" "Therapy. Real therapy. Not some church group circle. Not a quick fix podcast. Sit down with a licensed therapist and listen to how deep this goes." She nodded instantly. "I will. Anything." I wasn't sure if I believed her, but I gave her a card. Not mine, but a trauma-informed family therapist we partnered with on the podcast. Someone with teeth. Someone who wouldn't let her off easy. "If you ever make it through 5 sessions without quitting, maybe I'll agree to coffee," I said. "Maybe." She took the card like it was gold. Like it weighed more than her purse, her guilt, her entire shame. She turned to leave, then paused. "Your father, he wants to see you too." I didn't answer. I just walked past her, through the backstage door, and into the night. 2 months later, the therapist emailed me. "Your mother's been attending every session. She doesn't defend herself. She cries a lot, but she listens. I thought you should know." That same week, a letter arrived at the podcast office. Handwritten, shaky cursive. It was from my dad. He admitted to everything. How he'd agreed to the prank without thinking. How, in his words, he followed the current of everyone else's cruelty because it was easier than standing up. He wrote about how ashamed he was. How silence had always been his worst trait. "I may not deserve to call myself your father anymore," he wrote, "but I'd like to become someone who earns that title, even if it takes the rest of my life." I didn't write back, but I saved the letter. Some scars aren't meant to fade, but sometimes, when the light hits them right, they remind you of how far you've come. 1 year later, I met my parents for coffee. They were different, worn down, humbled. They didn't make excuses. They didn't try to rewrite history. They just listened. And for the first time, I felt something I hadn't in years. Not trust, not love, but possibility. A quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, the past didn't have to define the rest of our story. But if it did, I was okay with that too. Because I wasn't the kid at the gas station anymore. I was Ethan, and I'd built my own road.